glad you guys are back with us because we are going to talk about the jaw and the neck and the ears, and this is actually kind of an important part. Everyone always wants to focus on the eyes and the lips and the hair and that fun stuff, but it actually is really important to do things like the neck because a lot of times there's nothing creepier. I see a lot of amateur artists where they will draw just a head with no neck, and it's almost like Jambi from Pee-wee's Playhouse, just like floating on their paper, and that looks really weird. So almost always, even if you look at basic movie poster design, where a lot of times it is just two big heads, if you look at those posters again, there is always some kind of indication of the neck, some kind of indication of what kind of shirt they're wearing, or a necklace, or a collar, something that really helps define who that character is. And then you can kind of crop and cut things off and use it as an element in a montage, but never would you see just the head by itself. So the first thing that we want to do, when we drew this head, we drew lightly with the orange marker or lightly with your pencil back at home. So what we want to do now that we can actually see the face, we can kind of define the jawline a little bit better. And I'm looking at this is okay. It's looking a little bit thick over here and just a little bit thick over here, but that's okay because we drew lightly. Now we're gonna go back in and we're gonna define that just a little bit better. So I'm gonna trim off just a little bit here. I'm gonna bring this up a little bit here. Yeah, that's already feeling better. I'm gonna bring this in over here and over here. Much better. Maybe trim that out. And that's why you want to start by drawing lightly, so you really can kind of define those shapes as you go along. Next up, we need to draw the ears. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the ears, especially because we're drawing from the front view here, but there's some really cool tips I can give you. For example, the ears are usually the distance from the eyes to the nose. So if someone has a longer nose, they'll generally have longer ears, and if they have a shorter nose, they'll usually have little bite-sized ears. If you don't mind, they're fun size or bite size. If you've got the eye line here, if you take the nose straight across, like so, that is going to tell us where the ears are. And you simply draw in the basic ear shape, like so. Now, what you'll notice when the head is looking straight like this, the ear is behind the center axis of the head. So what happens if the head slightly looks down, if you can look down, do you see how the ear just tilted up a little bit? Now if you can look up, see how the ear swiveled down? So what happens now, if you can look at the camera, sometimes what you'll see in photographs, if someone is looking up a little bit like this, it's almost like their ears are going to be lower. And then if someone is looking down, if you can look down a little bit, but look at the camera. So if it's kind of like, sometimes you'll see like metal bands whenever they're on the cover of a metal magazine, they're always looking like they're just way over it and they're kind of looking over the bridge of their nose like this. And then if you look at wrestling magazines, they're always looking at you like this, you know, because they're looking kind of through their brow. What you'll notice is the ears will swivel up if they're looking at you like this, and then they'll swivel down if they're looking at you like this. When you're looking at the head, man, I drew that ear just a little bit bigger than the other one. Want to get a little more symmetry here. Keep that in mind. If you're drawing your head a little bit more like this or a little bit more like this, the ears will swivel one way or another. Next up, we need to add a neck. And with women, you want to draw a slender neck. So you can have the neck in like so, tapering into the shoulders. So here's one thing that you don't want to do. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add all of these things here to the Rongo. Of course, I could draw giant ears for the Rongo one and it would make it look really bad. So I'm going to be fair and I'm going to draw tiny little ears, but I'm just going to put them kind of in the wrong place slightly. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to draw the slender neck. But here's what not to do. You don't want to draw, even when someone is slender or when they're athletic, they have definition in their neck where you can see the jugular kind of coming in like this, and you'll see the pit of the neck and the clavicle. When you're drawing women, you don't want to add those extra lines because then that almost looks like chicken neck, or it looks like they're on steroids or something like that. It's just a little bit too much. Less is more, especially when drawing the female figure. There's a couple more secrets that I want to give you guys on what not to draw. There's a couple extra lines where we think we're doing the face a favor by adding in these extra details. So a couple things that you don't want to do. You don't want to add a crease above the chin like so. So sometimes people actually have a crease like that, but as soon as you draw a line right there, it almost looks like it's another mouth, like a Muppet mouth. It's going to open up and say, hey, I want some cheeseburgers too, right? That's just a little strange. No one actually has a Sharpie line drawn across their chin, so that's just a little bit too much. We don't need to do that. Next up, sometimes people have a chin dimple, or it's called a cleft chin, or when I was a kid growing up, kids were really mean and they called it a butt chin. So you don't actually want to draw that dimple, because as soon as you put a line right here, that looks like someone can insert a quarter and start playing Pac-Man. That's just way too much. No one actually has a chin dimple where it's a Sharpie line drawn on their chin like so. It's just way too much. Next up, usually when I'm in a classroom, I can look around the room and I can tell which of you are smokers and which of you aren't. Because when you do a lot of smoking, you get the lines right here and here. It's not because it has anything to do with nicotine or like smoking's bad for you. It's because you guys have to make the face. When everyone smokes, they make the, like it hurts. I'm like, hey, what's up? And when you do this for years and years, you get these lines right here. Also, you get those lines gradually as you get older. But you don't want to add those lines in like you're doing it a favor, because you are instantly adding 40 years to the person you're drawing. Now imagine if you're drawing a little kid and you add these lines under the eyes and you add these lines here and here, your kid that was 4 years old is now 84 years old. So you don't want to add those lines. Next up, the angel kiss. Casey, do you know what the angel kiss is by any chance?
I don't.
Okay, so the angel kiss, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of science. When babies are born, when the doctor pulls out a baby, pulls babies out like this and holds the baby upside down and smacks their butt, and that's when the baby cries for a first time. There's a reason why. When you're born, you actually don't have this area right here that's pressed in. This is called your angel kiss. Casey's got hers right there. So when you're born, it's completely flat. You don't have it, but the first time you cry, that's when your guardian angel comes down and says, when you're crying for the first time, your guardian angel comes down and says, and touches you right here. That's how you get the angel. James is looking at me like I'm crazy. It's real science. Trust me, look it up in a science book. You'll learn all about it. You don't actually want to draw that, because as soon as you put that in, it's kind of like an upside down horseshoe. When you draw that in, that doesn't look like an angel kiss. That looks like a nasal drip. That's like the worst place you could put that upside down horseshoe. You don't want to add it. If you draw the nose correctly and you draw the lips correctly, you'll actually feel where that area is without having to draw it. Less is more. I just saved your life again. So what I want you to do, please like this video. I want you to subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me comments on all the fun stuff you want to see. But there's another video coming up that may answer those questions, so stay tuned for that.